And thanks to you at home for joining us. Happy Friday. In July of last year, Robert Mueller and the special counsel's office indicted a dozen Russian military intelligence officers for their role in carrying out the Russian government's attack on our 2016 election. And the timing of when that indictment dropped seemed like maybe somebody was making a point, because 3 days later, Trump was set to meet with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. And they did go ahead with that summit. They had a public press availability. They also ended up meeting behind the scenes, one of those times when Trump insisted that no other Americans be allowed to listen in on their conversation. But this was right after that GRU indictment, spelling out in painstaking detail the literal keystrokes of the Russian military intelligence operation that hit our election, the specific GRU units that were involved, the times of day that specific officers were active in the plot, the specific named Russian officers and what each of them individually did. That indictment was amazing in its detail. That happens. And then Trump not only doesn't cancel his Helsinki summit with Putin, which is scheduled for 3 days later, he goes much further out on that shaky little limb than he'd even started on. And he said in Helsinki that he absolutely believed Vladimir Putin when Putin told him that Russia didn't do it. I mean, never mind that indictment from 3 days earlier, never mind what the U.S. government had to say about what Russia did. He believed Russia, not the United States. Trump also praised at the Helsinki summit what he called an incredible offer from Putin to embed some Kremlin guys in the U.S. investigation of what Russia did. Wow, what an incredible offer. We can have some Russian guys from your government embedded in our investigation? Whew, thank you. We won't have to hire temps. He also spoke positively about another great idea from Vladimir Putin, that he, Vladimir Putin, and the Russian government should have handed over to them certain Americans they had long wanted to get their hands on, including former U.S. Ambassador Michael McFaul. Trump in Helsinki, 3 days after Mueller indicted a dozen Russian military intelligence officers and named the Russian government and described their exact actions against the U.S. in that operation targeting our election. Trump met with Putin and thought all of Putin's ideas were amazing, including him getting his hands on Americans that Trump would hand over to him. That's what happened last summer, right after the GRU indictment. Well, now it's a couple of weeks after we got Robert Mueller's report released, and today we get word from the Kremlin. Naturally, it's always the Kremlin that announces these things first. Today, we get word from the Russian government that our president spent more than an hour on the phone today with Vladimir Putin. Now, Mueller's report starts with more than 200 pages of detail of the Russian government's operation targeting our election, including Putin's personal role in it. Him personally directing overtures from Kremlin-controlled Russian oligarchs to make overtures to Trump and people connected to him. I mean, that just came out. Then the president spent more than an hour on the phone with Putin today. Did the president mention any of that to Vladimir Putin today? Was the president prepared with any criticism whatsoever? Any challenge whatsoever as to how Putin and his government interfered in our election, including Putin's personal involvement? Is there any possibility America's president might have told Putin to back off our next election, since FBI Director Chris Wray said this past week that Russia is absolutely going great guns to hit the next election too? Was there any mention of that in more than an hour on the phone with Putin today, right after Mueller's report came out? Here's the transcript from the informal press briefing today. Reporter: Mr. President, did you tell him not to meddle in the next election? President Trump: excuse me, I'm talking, you are very rude. So we had a good conversation about many different things. Okay. Reporter: did you tell him not to meddle in the next election? Trump: we didn't discuss that. Really, we didn't discuss it. Then another reporter later on comes back to it, asks him again, did you tell him not to meddle in the next election? Trump says, it didn't come up. He did, however, make clear today, after this phone call, that even though the whole rest of his own administration spent all week saying that Russia was interfering in Venezuela and propping up the Venezuelan dictator there, turns out President Trump now says Putin isn't doing that at all. because Putin told him so. You see the headline in Bloomberg News today. Trump says Putin not involved in Venezuela, despite U.S. claim. So Putin says he's not doing it. And so President Trump believes it. And so, hey, John Bolton, hey, Mike Pompeo, are you guys enjoying your jobs right now? You each thought your job this week was to name and shame and threaten and counter Russian government involvement in Venezuela while saber rattling about how everybody else better get out of the way because the U.S. is really mad about it. Guys, turns out your actual job is figuring out how and why you work for a president who says whatever Vladimir Putin tells him. I mean, just to be clear here, how do you come to work anymore if you're John Bolton? Right? Regardless of what you thought about John Bolton before this, of his whole career and his track record, set it aside. Just think of John Bolton as a human being. This is what John Bolton, human being, thought his job was this week. Again, whether you like what he's saying here or not, this is what they've had him out there saying.
The Trump administration has also made the claim that Russia is very much involved in propping up the Maduro regime. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told my colleague Wolf Blitzer yesterday that there was a plane waiting to take Maduro to Cuba, but the Russians talked him out of it. What exactly is the Russian role here?
Look, the Russians like nothing better than putting a thumb in our eye. They're using the Cubans as surrogates. They'd love to get effective control of a country in this hemisphere. We've made it clear to the Russians in a lot of conversations at a lot of different levels, some of which are going to continue today, why we think this behavior is unacceptable to us.
Yeah, you thought that was your job, but it turns out not at all. Not after Vladimir Putin gets done with President Trump today.
He is not looking at all to get involved in Venezuela, other than he'd like to see something positive happen for Venezuela.
Putin doing anything in Venezuela? Who said Putin's doing anything bad in Venezuela? Who have you been listening to? I'm with him. He says he's not. John Bolton, God bless you. Good luck delicately and carefully shaving around that impressive mustache when you have to look at yourself in the mirror in coming days, Mr. National Security Advisor. This is who you're working for. You thought your job was to push Russia back because of what they're doing in Venezuela. The president spent an hour on the phone with Vladimir Putin today. Putin told him he's not in Venezuela. So now the new position of the U.S. government is that Putin's not in Venezuela. What's your job?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.